thanks those of you that are in attendance watching us, and thanks those of you who are going to watch this after the fact. This is our first NBA season preview show that we've ever done. Um, Figure it's apropos because it's the start of the season. And we have our two in-house NBA experts with us. So the first, Earl Hart III, last year won Right on Sports All-Star Student Award. For all the work that he's done in Right on Sports over the years. And I immediately thought of Earl because he has done a number of stories about the NBA and made some videos on his own, doing some video reporting from home during the pandemic and being very creative with using video. And then I'm also joined by Evan Whitaker, who just did Right on Sports this past summer, who wrote a really, really in-depth story about kind of overlooked players and players that people sleep on, and did a really nice statistical analysis of them. So when I thought, all right, it's the beginning of the NBA season, who am I going to have a conversation with about the NBA? I immediately thought of Earl and Evan. So Earl and Evan, thank you for making time in your busy schedule. I know that the school year has started, so you have a lot of other demands outside of Right on Sports. So we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about kind of rookie of the year and trades, your predictions for MVP and champions, and then any of the drama that you want to talk about, because it seems like you can't talk about the NBA without talking about drama. So let's jump right in with rookie of the year. So I don't know of any other league where this is such a big deal, right? Like you don't really hear that much about rookie of the year, in football or baseball, but there seems to be a lot of attention paid to rookie of the year in baseball traditionally. So, Evan or Earl, you want to jump in with who you're looking at in terms of who you think is going to be rookie of the year and why?
Yeah, I believe that Paulo Banchero can become Rookie of the Year because of the things he can already do combined with his size. For example, he's a great three-level scorer. He is very strategic with his footwork off the dribble, and nobody was able to match his combination of strength and size while still being explosive. And this is without a doubt a threat to all rookies and eventually the NBA. All of these aspects, like the physical tools and the unexpected craft from a large and powerful guy like Bonchero, is very rarely found in professional players.
Yeah, and 10 years ago, I don't know that we would be having conversations about European players, being rookie of the year, right? But like now it's just accepted that they can come over and that they can hang, and not only can they hang, but they can actually succeed in the game. So so Evan, if you were going to compare his game to a player that other people have on their radar, who might you compare him to?
I think maybe like a more like more of a Kevin Durant, but like definitely bigger and stronger. But a lot of his game reminds me of Kevin Durant. His footwork, mid range, it really matches up to me.
Right. So he's graceful, right? So I think the question will be, can he stand the pounding of an NBA season? Um,
Yeah.
that's Kevin Durant, I have to say, is one of my most spectacular um, failed predictions. When he was coming into the NBA, I thought he's not big enough. I thought, he's got all these skills, but I thought he's physically not big enough to hang with these guys, right? And they're just going to kind of beat him up. Um, so I was 100% wrong on my Kevin Durant prediction. So I'm not going to say the same thing about Anchero. So Earl, what about you? Who do you have in mind for potential rookie of the year?
So for me, I have Jaden Ivey. He plays currently for the Detroit Pistons. I believe he's going to be the rookie of the year because of the place he plays. There's a lot of young guys. He has a place where he can grow, can score a lot, he can make mistakes, and he'll still play because the coaches believe in his talent. And it's a place basically where he could become the franchise player or even more than that, and very valuable.
Yeah, I think it's an intriguing place for him to be, right? Because it seems like Cunningham's makeup is not that he needs to be the guy, right? So it seems like Cunningham would be willing to facilitate for Ivy and let Ivy get to be where he wants to be, right? And some other places, some other young stars might I don't know, might bristle, right, at having another big a big player come in, but it seems like Cunningham I is going to set Ivy up for success rather than be a competition for him.
Right.
Who would you compare Ivy's game to, that's currently playing?
I'm gonna have to compare Jaden Ivey probably to someone like a Kyrie Irving. His ball handling is really on point, and he's like a great player in the open floor. He can like get down the court like really quickly and score on like multiple different levels.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I am going to weigh in on this, and I'm going to have to agree with Earl. My pick would be with Ivy, in part because I think of the supporting cast around him. But I also think that Detroit is going to get more media coverage than Orlando. And whether it's fair or not, I think that's going to keep Ivy on people's radar, right? In ways that Orlando's not going to provide that sort of platform. So if their numbers are roughly equal, I think Ivy's going to have the edge in that way, just because more people will be talking about him, throughout the year. Um, what do you think about Keegan Murray? He's like the third big one that people are looking to. Do you guys have any opinions about Murray?
I do. I believe Keegan Murray. He's a really good player, and he's kind of like Pablo Banchero. He can score on multiple different levels. But the thing about him that's really impressive, that probably could win him Rookie of the Year, is his defense. He's everywhere on defense. He can play 1 through 5. He's like one of the best defenders in the class. And honestly, I would have to compare him to probably someone like a Patrick Beverly.
Mm-hmm.
He's not like as annoying, but he can
Who
really
is?
get up.
Who
He
is?
can right. He can really get up in your face and disrupt you and cause a lot of commotion.
Mm-hmm. Evan, any thoughts on Murray?
Yeah, once again, I really like his defense, and his defensive footwork can definitely translate to his offensive game too, especially with his size and height. He has offensive potential and defense potential as well.
Yeah, I'm worried about the team that he's going to. The Kings have had, I think, 16 head coaches in 16 years or something. Just an incredibly dysfunctional organization. Um, the trade they made last year for Sabonis, I didn't really understand. He's a fine player, but they seem to give up a lot of talent to get him. So uh, I worry that Murray's going to be good player on a bad team, and that might lead to some points, but I don't know if it's going to be good for his development to be on like a really really dysfunctional team. If they manage to kind of right the ship a little bit, then maybe he does come out with the Rookie of the Year because he made that team that much better. Um, but I worry for his early career. Is DeAndre Fox getting better? I mean, who knows, right? Just because Sacramento was so dysfunctional. So, all right. So we have one suggestion for Anchero, one for Ivy, two for Ivy. So we'll have to see. All right. So our second question is trades. This is another thing that the NBA. I mean, in baseball, you hear a little bit about trades, right? But it's really the NBA where trades are kind of always in the news. So, Evan, trade that you want to highlight as you think being like super important when it comes to this upcoming season.
I really like the Donovan Mitchell trade in Cleveland's favor because it only adds to their improvement process. Now that they have Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Karis LeVert, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen as a potential starting five, they're definitely a threat in the Eastern Conference. Plus, this trade was a very smart move because Mitchell does not change the timeline of the Cavs' young core. And Cleveland additionally was ranked 19th in the offensive category last season. Now they have a dynamic duo of two guards that know how to shot create, get to the basket, and find their teammates.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a great, and they gave up almost nothing to get him, like
Yeah.
mostly draft picks, right? And if they perform as well as they hope to, then those draft picks aren't going to be particularly valuable, right? They're going to be pretty low. So I think that was a really good trade for them. I understand why Ainge did it. I mean, Ainge was basically kind of blowing up the Jazz, right? But I think it was a really good deal for the Cavs. Earl, what about you? A trade that you think is particularly important to keep your eyes on?
For me, I'm gonna have to say the Malcolm Brogdon trade to the Celtics. It was a really good move by the Celtics because if you saw last year when they played in the finals, that was the one of the reasons why they weren't as successful because Marcus Smart isn't a point guard.
Yeah.
He doesn't score like a point guard. And bringing in someone like Malcolm Brogdon who can help Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown ease on the scoring end, and it can help them honestly. And he's a really good defender, so that'll help them on the defensive end. So when they need to guard people like a Steph Curry or LeBron James, they'll have him. And another good thing about that is that now Marcus Smart can focus on his defense and less on the offensive end, so he can be even better than he was last year.
Yeah, I agree. And we saw it last night already, right? That Brogdon came in off the bench, and then all of a sudden, that second unit, when Tatum and Brown are out, can still score, right? Which was a real problem for them last year. And if they want to go with a small lineup, right, they can go with Brogdon and Smart at the same time, right? And then Tatum and Brown and a big, whichever big they want to use. Yeah, I think that was a really important trade, and it seems to be a really good chemistry fit so far in terms of like how he's getting along with them. So, as a Celtics fan, I was very happy with that trade. I think it was a very, very good trade for them, especially for the bench. Um, the trade that I want to highlight is the Rudy Gobert to the Timberwolves trade. I think that was a bad trade for the Timberwolves. I think it was a good trade for the Jazz. I think they got like good picks and some interesting young players. I don't like Gobert's game particularly. I think it's a bit one dimensional. And if they go with like a all bigs lineup, then they're going to be slow, right? And that's just not the contemporary NBA game, So I don't know how he fits with that team, with where they were going. Um, and they were right on the bubble last year, and to bring a veteran in who didn't really have success in his last team, right? They couldn't get over the hump. I'm not sure that he brings in a veteran presence that you want. So um, if I was the Timberwolves, I would have kept Young and maybe looked for another small forward or another shooting guard or something. But I don't think that big in the middle is going to do much for them. Um, you've already got height with Cat, right? Like I don't know what else. I don't know what else Gobert is going to do for you. So I feel like that could blow up spectacularly for them. That they're not going to get much out of it. Um, I mean, it's tough to be a Jazz fan, right? Like you've just been told that the plan is now 5 years or however long it is for all these draft picks to come in, right? But um, I feel like the Wolves are tantalizingly close to being a good team, and I don't think this is going to make them a better team. So, okay. Um, so MVP, right? We always want to, again, in the NBA, people care about the MVP. Last year, there was a lot of chatter about, whether Jokic should have got it, whether Embiid should have got it. You know, I was okay with Jokic having it last year because his wins against replacement and his win share is just was historically high because he can do so much. Uh, but your thoughts on this season? Who's going to be the MVP this season? Earl, you want to start?
I believe Giannis will probably win the MVP. I think they were still recovering from that loss last year to the Celtics, but this year I think their chemistry is going to be there. They added some new pieces that will help them off the bench. And Giannis, honestly, he's a really good scorer. I think he just needs to work on his shooting and like shot creating a little bit more. But besides that, he's a really good player, and he can score on all the levels that the Bucks need him to. And he's like a really good piece to help lead their team to another title.
Yeah, he just can't score at the free throw line. So Like he's such a glaring fault in his game, right? If he had a decent free throw, then you wouldn't foul him, right? He would be nearly unstoppable. Um, and I feel like he's gotten better every year, but I don't know, like, is there a next gear for him, right? Or how close do you think he is to his ceiling, Earl?
Um, I still think he has he can still improve a lot more.
All right, and you think he's going to do it this year?
I think so. Yeah.
He's going to show it this year. Okay, it's funny to me, like he's enjoyable to watch play, right? Except when he's playing against your team. But he cracks me up when he tries to like mean mug, right? Because he just doesn't have that face to mean mug, right? Like I don't know, like whenever he does the mean mug, I don't know if you've ever seen it. I love like when red pandas. Have you ever seen like when red pandas get scared? Like they lean back up on like their back legs and they raise their hands like this, like you don't want any part of this, and you're like, oh my god, you're such a cute little red panda. Like I feel like when Giannis mean mugs, he looks like a red panda. He's just like, and I'm like, okay, Giannis. Like I just love watching him when he's trying to do that. Evan, what about you? Thoughts on MVP?
I believe that Steph can go out and win a third MVP because you could argue that he is getting old and he hasn't won since the 2013-14 and the 2014-15 seasons, but he's just not your average guy on the court, and he's an outstanding player and teammate. He's such a great leader to the point where he makes everyone around him better, and he's also able to take his experiences and pass them on to others and make them better.
Yeah, I mean, think about his year last year, right? Around the All-Star break and even a little bit after the All-Star break, people are like, what's wrong with Steph? Right? Like his shooting percentage was down, like he was missing his shots. And people are like, what's wrong with Steph? What's wrong with Steph? And then the playoffs come around, uh, especially against the Celtics, he was just lights out. Right. I mean, he was sort of vintage Curry, kind of hitting from like everywhere on the court. Um, how much of his MVP candidacy do you think relies upon the health of the rest of the team?
I think partially a lot does because the Warriors are a very fast-paced team, and they can't really compete at a fast pace if they don't have enough players coming off the bench.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not a half court kind of guy, right? He really flourishes in that transition where,
Yeah.
people are still settling into their defense, and then he'll pop it from 30 feet or 28 feet or wherever he decides. Um, I think a lot will be like how much Clay Thompson can produce.
Yeah.
He came back pretty slow last year, but he had his moments in the playoffs. Um, it'd be interesting to see what he's like for a full season, like
Yeah.
being asked to do it for 82 games. Right. My pick for MVP is Joel Embiid. I feel like an argument could have been made last year for him. He's so close. He's such a dominant force on both ends of the court. Um, and I feel like he's got a chip on his shoulder this year because he feels like he was so close the last couple of years. So I don't always enjoy watching him play. He's got great footwork and he's very talented. But sometimes I feel like he gets a little bit like watching Shaq back in the day, where he just gets in the paint and knocks people over. I don't really enjoy watching that as a style of play. But there's no denying how talented he is, and I think if there's any sense that it's a toss up, I think voters will lean to him because they recognize for the last couple of years when it was a toss up, they went away from him and they went to Jokic. And so then I think that he'll probably get the benefit of the doubt this year. Um, a lot of that depends on Harden, right? And kind of how Harden is as a teammate. But my gut tells me that it's going to be Embiid's year, even if they don't win the championship. I have a feeling like, Embiid might be the MVP. All right, so then championship. Who you got? Who you got in the finals, and then who do you got win in the finals?
I have the Bucks versus the Clippers or the Warriors. I have the Bucks winning the NBA championship mainly because they did nothing but improve this offseason. They signed key players like Bobby Portis and Wesley Matthews, and they also received a great draft selection in Marjon Beauchamp. and they gained a great 3-point shooter in Joe Ingles from the Jazz.
Yeah, I think the Joe Ingles pickup sort of flew under the radar, but I think that could be a really good pickup for them, right? I mean, he really is a threat from deep, right? Which is gonna kind of open up the key a little bit for everybody else. It's a question of, can he recover his form? But it seems like he could, so yeah, I'm pretty high on the Bucks. I'm pretty high on the Bucks too. Earl, what about you? Oh, and hang on. Oh, Erin, why Clippers? Why the Clippers are not the Warriors?
Mainly because the Clippers, they're getting back Kawhi. Kawhi is just such a great player. He knows how to score. He has past experiences on how to defend at the best level, and he's only gonna transfer on advice to his teammates. And plus, they have Paul George too. That's gonna be a great offensive threat.
Yeah. All right. Earl, who you got in the finals and who you got winning?
In the finals, I have the Clippers versus the Heat or Celtics.
I like the sound of that. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to explain. I think the Clippers are going to win the title.
Okay.
This year, they have, like Evan said, they have Kawhi coming back, and Paul George is, hopefully he stays healthy, can stay healthy the whole season. And for me, I think they're going to be really good, especially saying how they picked up John Wall, who was under the radar, and I've seen what he did in preseason, and he looks like he's in really good shape, and he can actually help their offense. And I think the team overall, the chemistry is just there, and their starting lineup is looking really good. And honestly, overall, I think they can get over the hump and win the Western Conference over the Warriors, and then beat whoever they have to beat in the finals.
Well, I mean, Wall certainly doesn't have that much. He hasn't spent that many minutes in games the last couple of years, so he should be refreshed. I mean, like he's barely played for the last couple of years, right? So if he's healthy, yeah, he should have a lot of energy. All right, so in the East, you got the Celtics or the Heat getting past the Bucks. How's that going to happen?
I honestly think, I think I'll explain the Heat first.
Okay.
The Heat, probably because they have a chip on their shoulder, they keep losing before they get to the finals. They can't win. Last year, it was because Jimmy Butler just missed the three-pointer by a little bit. And then the year before that, they got eliminated in the second round by the Bucks. So this year, I think they'll be able to get back to the finals. And they might not be able to win, but at least getting there is a step forward. They have pieces like Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry, and then you have people off the bench like Tyler Hero. You have Jimmy Butler. Really good pieces. And the chemistry there is, and the culture is just really great. And they're a team, and I think they can win it all.
I'm fascinated by them because I've really grown to respect Spoelstra as a coach, right? So, he first comes to prominence when the big three, win a couple of championships. And I was like, yeah, all right. So how much was that the coach and how much was that having, Bosh, Wade and LeBron James on your team? But Spoelstra has kept whoever he has on the roster since then really competitive, right? And they just, they play solid defense. They play, a good offense. So I'm really impressed by Spoelstra. I feel like he's a really good coach. The only thing I don't like about them is they seem a little streaky to me. Like Duncan Robinson is streaky, Tyler Hero is streaky. So in the playoffs last year, Robinson barely played, even though he had was leading the league in 3-pointers. So I'm not sure what Spoelstra saw or didn't see that he sort of benched Robinson. And I think Tucker's a loss too. I think losing PJ Tucker is going to affect them. Sort of his just toughness, I think I think he's more of a loss to them than he is a gain to the Sixers in a certain way. But and why are my beloved Celtics possibly going to get back to the finals?
So I think the Celtics are going to make it back to the finals. Like I said before, they had a great pickup. But Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, their duo, they're just crazy good. And the crazy part is they're still both under 30, and they have like a long way to go. So they could end up being really great, like with some of the best people that ever played the game.
Yeah. I mean, somebody described the last year's Celtics team, particularly in the playoffs. For 5 minutes when you were watching them, you could think this is the greatest team that's ever been on the court. And then for another 5 minutes, you could think this is the worst team that's ever been on the court. And it's the exact same team, right? Because when the ball's moving sharply and they're cutting, it's beautiful. And then when they're making turnovers left and right, and just like pulling my hair out, like so many turnovers, you know. I mean, I saw some statistic that said Tatum as a first time finalist at his age, LeBron James, he's not LeBron James, but LeBron James' first final, he also had a whole boatload of turnovers, right? So if they can cut down on that, there's already a little bit last night of that, but like if they can cut down on that, I think they could be a really, really dangerous team. I think Grant Williams is a legitimate 3-point threat now, and people are going to have to start to pay attention to him. I think a lot of it's going to be what shape Robert Williams is in when he comes back from his injury, you know. So and if Jaylen Brown doesn't dribble into traffic all the time like he does, but that's just me as a Celtics fan getting frustrated. So, but when it comes to the championship, I'm gonna have to agree with Evan on this one. I'm going with the Bucks. Um, I feel like last year they just had some really unfortunate injuries, just at the wrong time. And I think if everybody's healthy, they're just super talented. I think Budenholz is a good coach. And I think he can work with some of the chaos. I think some of the pickups that Evan mentioned are super important. So I think it's going to be the Bucks, and I think it's going to be the Warriors coming out of the West. I don't trust the Clippers. They're snake bit. They're cursed. Somehow the Clippers will manage to not get to the finals. I would be happy for them because as a Celtics fan, I hate the Lakers, you know, and if an LA team that's not the Lakers wins, that's fine with me. But there's I don't know.
It's every single year. It's always something like Chris Paul was there. They blew a 3-1 lead.
Yeah.
Then recently Kawhi got hurt. Then Paul George got COVID one year.
Yeah.
Like too much is going on there.
They did something really bad in a previous life. I'm not sure what it was that they did, but they did something really bad in a previous life that's not going to let them get over the hump. I like Kawhi a lot. But I don't see it. I feel like the Warriors are going to be one of these teams where maybe because they're older, I can see them coming in second or third seed and not fighting for that first seed because they don't care. And then once the playoffs happen, they're just the Warriors, right? And they do what they need to do. Okay. All right. So the last thing to mention, oh no, a couple of other things, right? So sleeper teams that you think the people are sleeping on that you want to call people's attention to.
I think I have to go with the Memphis Grizzlies, and I say this bit because in the preseason games, they were really special. Things like the chemistry, communication, defense, play style, and fun. It all stood out. And they also managed to keep great role players on the team like Xavier Tillman, Tyus Jones, and John Conchar. And in addition, they gained rookie point guard Kennedy Chandler and rookie forward Kenneth Lofton. They also have the leadership from an experienced veteran in Steven Adams that will help them win and strive in the West.
It's not just me, right? Steven Adams looks like Jason Momoa, right? You know,
Oh,
right? It's not just me, right? He looks like Jason Momoa, right? So I my younger son last year was starting to get into basketball, and so he was like, which game should I watch? And I would just be like, let's watch the Grizzlies. I feel like even if you don't know that much about basketball and you watch the Grizzlies, you will be entertained, right? Like John Morant is going to do something ridiculous, right? And you're just going to be like, how did a human being do that? So I worry about his ability to stay on the court. I feel like he's going to get injured because he plays like a Super Mario game, right? He's just like doing, 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 right? And it's fun to watch, but you got to land, right? And he's not landing on a mushroom or like, you know, in the lake, right? He's landing on a court. So they're super fun to watch. They are definitely super fun to watch.
yeah.
Oh, what about you? team that you think that people are sleeping on?
For me, my sleeper team is the Hawks. They were another one of those teams that had a great pickup, DeJounte Murray, who is a really good player. He's been developing while he was in San Antonio. Now he's even better. Played some games over the summer, and you could just see his potential. And you could also see in those summer games when he played with Trae Young and John Collins, they just had the chemistry, and they look like a really good team so far. Now, honestly, I think if not a playoff team, I think they can make the play-in and do some legitimate, some damage, and be really good.
I feel like that the DeJounte Murray trade was Greg Popovich being a nice guy to him. That he was basically saying, look, we're not going to be good for the next couple of years. You're a really good player. You should go to a team where, like, you got a chance. Like, I don't know, like, I know I feel it was nice of the Spurs to do that, just to basically be like, go ahead someplace else. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the Spurs because I love Popovich and I think he's going to get them playing hard. Um, the team that I think people are going to sleep on, I'm not sure if it counts because of the Mitchell trade, but I feel like people aren't talking about the Cavs as much as they should be talking about the Cavs. I feel like that's a really loaded team. It's young. They do everything well. And I feel like Mitchell's going to feel like he has something to prove. So I love Jared Allen. I mean, I think he's a great player. I think the Nets really messed up in that trade. So if they count, I would pick the Cavs because I feel like not enough people are talking about the Cavs. All right, flip side of that, who's going to be a disappointment?
I think I have to choose the Bulls for this one because of the team and how they're so really constructed. They have everyone and everything they need. It is just that these pieces, they don't really fit well together, and it is their fault. They are top 10 in the league for most points allowed. They show obvious communication issues, and last season they always put up 13 turnovers or more per game. And of course, they have DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and Zach LaVine, but they don't have any winning experience. These are obviously all great players, but winning experience is a factor that is needed to succeed in today's game.
Yeah, I don't know that I give Levine the max extension that they gave him either. That's a lot of money for somebody whose game is not polished. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think that's being rude. His game is he certainly has room to grow in his game, and I feel like giving him that max contract is going to hamstring your team in terms of like building. I wouldn't build around him. I wouldn't build around him. I don't think so. Yeah, I can see the Bulls not coming together because I don't really understand their identity right now. All right, Earl, for you, somebody that's going to be a disappointment.
So for me, I couldn't just choose one.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
for me, it was the Pelicans and the Suns.
right.
The Pelicans for me, because they're just way too much hype. Zion Williamson, he's played like less than 50 games in the last 3 seasons. He can't stay on the court.
Yeah.
And then the Pelicans in the playoffs, they played the Suns and they just basically messed up. And I don't think the chemistry is there. They have great players like CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, and then they have other pieces like Jose Alvarez and Larry Nance Jr. that can be helpful. But the team, I don't think the communication and the chemistry is there, and they're not really a culture.
Yeah, I mean, I like McCollum, but what did they do in Portland, right? They sort of like stalled out in Portland, right? When McCollum was there. And Williamson, his shooting percentage from within like the restricted zone is like, I don't know, 80%. And his shooting percentage outside the restricted zone, it's like 20 or so. Like he literally, it's either a dunk, a layup, or a miss, and at a certain point, teams will be able to scheme for that, right? Or they'll be like, all right, you get your points, but nobody else is getting any points, right? So like, I am definitely not sold on him. I mean, him and Zach LaVine doing that Mountain Dew ads. I'm like, you guys should be like working on your game instead of like playing video games and selling Mountain Dew. Last thing Zion Williamson needs is more Mountain Dew, right? Like, Probably John Morant doesn't need any Mountain Dew either, right? He's already like naturally caffeinated, right? So, but those guys don't need any Mountain Dew. And the Suns is your second disappointment.
So I have the Suns. This goes a little bit into the drama category, but I'm gonna say the Suns because there's too much going on there. There's DeAndre Ayton and the coach have not called since they lost in the second round of the NBA playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
which makes zero sense to me because they had to have had training camp at some point.
Yeah.
So not only that, I just think they can't get over the hump. It doesn't matter what place they come in. They could come in first. They could come in 10th. It doesn't matter. They're still going to lose to a team that they should have beat, and it's not going to be so great. And then they're going to come back the next year. People are going to have high hopes for them. They're just going to do the same thing over and over again. And for some reason, wherever Chris Paul goes, he just can't win.
Yeah.
It's like he has like a curse too.
Yeah.
It's like always the teams he gets on, it just never works out.
Yeah. So I'm not high on Chris Paul. And last year in the playoffs, I had just picked up my cell phone to text a former Right on Sports student who then became an intern, who I had badmouthed Chris Paul to, and he was high on Chris Paul. And I had my phone out and I was just about to text, "I'm sorry, I was wrong about Chris Paul." And before I could press send, I was like, "No, I'm not wrong about Chris Paul," because the game got away from them. So, yeah, yeah. And for a team that scores a lot, somehow they're not that much fun to watch. I mean, like Booker's fun to watch, but like, I don't know. I something's wrong with that team. Monty Williams is clearly a good coach, but I'm with you, Earl. They could win 70 games. And when it comes to the playoffs, you'd still be like, yeah, am I picking them? I'm not sure if I'm picking them. Um, so my team that's going to disappoint is the Knicks. Because I sort of feel like the Knicks about, or what you were just saying about the Suns in the playoffs, that every year that people are like, oh, the Knicks are finally headed in the right direction. And then they let their fans down. Um, so, and I don't even think people have that particularly high hopes for the Knicks this year, but I still think they're going to get disappointed. You know, at some level, I don't care because I'm a Celtics fan. If Knicks fans are disappointed, but on a, like an objective level, I think the Knicks are going to disappoint. It's just I don't understand the Jalen Brunson deal. I feel like that was overpaying for somebody who had a nice playoffs but doesn't really have a big track record. Your
Right.
your superstar is a malcontent, so the chemistry is really odd. Um, Thibodeau as a coach, like first couple years, players buy into the defense and then they wear out, right? And then they don't listen to him anymore. This is kind of his track record. He goes to different teams, they improve for a couple years, and then they tune him out. So I feel like the Knicks, if they're not making progress, may start to
Right.
tune him
I
out.
believe I believe on believe with you on that too because Knicks they just have like too many things going on, kind of like the Suns. One year somehow Julius Randle is MVP level, but and All-Star level, and then the next year he can barely do anything. Like that just doesn't make any sense. Usually, after you're good, you're supposed to keep going up. You're not supposed to go back down.
Yes.
And then, like you said, they did pay a little bit too much for Jalen Brunson. He did a lot in the playoffs. He averaged 27.4 points per game. But in the season, he was only at like 18 points per game.
Yeah.
That's like, and that was without Luka Doncic. And here you have like a bunch of like ball hogs. You have Julius Randle. You have the guy Evan Fournier who can supposed to be a 3-point shooter. He can't shoot. And then you have other good players like RJ Barrett who like are still developing. And currently New York is not the best place for him
Yeah.
because it's just like they keep losing. They're kind of like the Suns too. They could make the playoffs like they did that one year and be a really good seed and still lose just because they, like Evan said before, they don't have that winning experience. And honestly, they just don't have it there.
All right, so sorry for all of those in the audience who are watching if it feels like we're piling on the Knicks, but all don't lie, right? Like this is what it is. All right. So last topic. This is another thing that we seem, people seem fascinated by in the NBA is the soap opera, their drama. all different things. So just as NBA fans, not as like team, people rooting for teams, but what NBA soap opera has you with the popcorn going like this, that like you just like you can't turn away from, even if it's like the ugly side of humanity, like you can't turn yourself away from that drama.
For me, it was definitely Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole. Because like my reaction was very shocked, and I would never guess that two teammates, especially on the Golden State Warriors, would have a physical interaction like this. And I heard that Poole was addressed to the media that he was trying to fix his relationship with Draymond Green. But I don't think their relationship will be regained anytime soon, because a physical interaction like that is just something that can't really be made up within the next couple weeks or so. So the Warriors are gonna have to definitely try to fix the relationship between not just them but all players. And the league is definitely gonna have to look out for other incidents like this.
Yeah, that was not a scuffle. I mean, that was a really powerful punch. He could have hurt him, and maybe he did, and we won't know. But yeah, that was really, really unfortunate. You know, this happens on football teams sometimes, right? In practice and things like that, because it's such a physical game, then it kind of gets swept under the rug a little bit. But NBA, you've got 15 players, you've got starting five, and then your tight eight rotation. Pool's part of that rotation, right? So I think it's gonna affect the team. So we'll see. I mean, he was clearly in the wrong, right? Regardless of what Poole, like, I don't even know if Poole had been taunting him, right? I think it was just sort of like, Green going off. So, um, and Evan, I think it's going to continue, right? I think we're not done with this story, right? I think this is going to linger through much of the season. All right, Earl, what's the soap opera that you're there for?
For me, it's definitely more than one thing, but I'm gonna start with the Suns. You have the owner. He's honestly, I don't know any a better word than idiot. He he was very wrong for what he's been saying and what the media caught him saying. And honestly, that's just rude to the NBA players. And that just like sets back the NBA because they've been trying to get rid of like coaches and players that have like say racial things, racially motivated slurs and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, he's a racist. He's a racist, right? And apparently a sexist too. So it's not even racially motivated. It's racist, right? He's had racist things and sexist things. So yeah. All right. So that's going to linger for a while because they're going to have to try to get him to sell the team. And
Right.
it's a really valuable team now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. All right. So what's the other piece of soap opera that you're there for?
For me, it's the Lakers. They're there's their team is goofy. They're funny to watch. It's when they got Patrick Beverly. We all know that's not going to go well. Patrick Beverly and Russell Westbrook, they have had so much beef in the last couple of years between like Russell Westbrook getting flipped over by Patrick Beverly on the court and then like waving goodbye to each other in the playoffs. There's just way too much going on. And then I heard the Lakers put their locker rooms next to each other. Like that's not going to help the situation. Both of them need to grow up. They're both making millions of dollars. They need to work together if the Lakers want any chance of going back to the finals and winning a title. Because LeBron James is really old. Anthony Davis can't stay on the court, so yeah. They're gonna need more from their bench and players like Russell Westbrook.
So I have never, as far as I know, maybe other than a first couple of episodes of Survivor many, many years ago, I've never watched any reality TV shows because I'm just not interested in reality TV shows. But the Lakers this year, I think, are going to be a reality TV show. And I'll certainly like get updates. As you said, not only the beef between Westbrook and Beverly on his own is a reality TV show. You're not sure what he's going to say or what he's going to do. Same thing with Westbrook. As much as I respect LeBron James, and I think he's, unarguably one of the 3-4 best players of all time, once a year, he's guaranteed to do something or say something that out of left field that you don't really understand. He's already talked about playing his last season with his son, which means that teams are calculating, like, do we sign him and get his son? even his hair, like his hairline is like drama. Like, is he bald? Is he not bald? Like everything about this team is just going to be a mess. And I have to admit that I'm going to read those stories in the newspaper. Right?
Also, I think another thing is that they've had way too many different coaches in the past couple of years. They had Frank Vogel. Now they have the new guy that used to be the assistant coach. And then before that, I forget the name of him, but he was like always saying really goofy stuff. Like I remember one year they were saying like he said Anthony Davis looked cute or something. Like there's always something goofy going on in LA.
Yeah, they're a mess. They're a mess, and I'm there for it. So,
Uh,
okay, all right. So, and now we've got a whole season to look forward to find out, if these predictions are going to come through. All right. So, but you're on the record, Evan. You're on the record with Steph, the Bucks, Banchero, and Mitchell being the big trade, right? Earl,
yeah.
you're on the record with the Clippers, Giannis, and Ivy as your rookie of the year, right? I'm on the record with Embiid for MVP, the Bucks for the champion, and Ivy also for the rookie of the year. So we'll have to check in with each other next June and see how our predictions did. And if they went really, really south, then we'll forget that we ever recorded this. And then we'll do something else to make it look like our predictions were a lot smarter than they actually were. So, all right. So Evan and Earl, thanks again for taking time out of your busy schedule. Keep doing the good work on writing and keeping up to date on the NBA. And I look forward to talking to you about the NBA, down the road. Thanks for everybody that was in the audience for attending, or if you're watching the archived version of that. All right. And have fun watching the NBA. So,
All right.
thanks, guys.
You.
Thank you.
See you, Dr. J.
All right. See you guys. All right.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Right on sports. That's a wrap. All right. We'll see everybody later.